the second day of April 2023 in Dana, Durnford, also known as the Nuclear Proctologist.org, and you can call in 709-589-4406, or you can text in. We can read texts. We got a poll for everybody tonight. We never have polls, so this is kind of a treat. Is hoodwinking the victims in the Fukushima nuclear meltdown zone to live in perpetual nuclear wasteland just kilometers away from multiple ongoing nuclear meltdowns despicable? It's a pretty easy poll for everybody tonight. I don't want to complicate the Sunday night show. It's the first show of the week. And we just got so much news to get into. Senator Youngskin is signing memorandums of understanding for small modular reactors that don't exist. So he's dooming his state and counties. Rather than come up with solutions, he's just a puppet, unfortunately, like a lot of them. But it's just sad because people need electricity, and he's going to delay them having a future and destroy all these kids with this fabled small modular reactors. Always takes me a moment to get up to bashing speed. But bashing speed we will. Canada was captured by the nuclear industries in the 60s. By the 70s, we were completely destroyed. In 78, they had an accident in Ontario, Canada, one of the nuclear power plants. So they raised the limits to 40,000 becquerels per liter for drinking water. 40,000 becquerels. Colorado's limit was 18 becquerels. Canada's scumbags were 7,000. Degenerate Canada. That's because they released so much tritium, for instance. It's just one of them. The state of California is just 15 becquerels, same as Europe. In Canada, it's 7,000 because they couldn't care less about you. In 1979, the groundwater concentrations were at 2.5 million becquerels a liter. Following a release, they have a huge release. They also have these glow-in-the-dark sign factories that use tritium, and they've had massive, absurd releases in the last decade alone. It's really something. In 2007, it was a tritium hazard report. Let me explain this to you, because it's kind of confusing. I'm not going to go way down the road. I've done entire presentations, 2 hours and a half, just on this subject on my site. It's a very confusing subject, so you got to walk people through every facet of it. But here's the rule. Now remember, Colorado's 20 or 18, California's 15, Europe's 15 becquerels per liter. Look what the batshit crazy Canadian considers legal. At the Darlington plant, air emissions, just air emissions, and then discharges to the lakes. You can't just have one without the other, and the Darlington is only showing one. But what is shown is 4.6 million terabecquerels, so that's a trillion becquerels. 4.6 million trillion becquerels is a normal release. That's just one site. Pickerings are releasing massive. These are all in terabecquerels. This is absurdness. Gentilly, Point Leper, the Bruce power plants. There's no comparison anywhere else on the planet. It's an absolute genocide what they're doing. And when I done the math, worked out to 10,600 pounds in a year. Just from the one plant, the Darlington plant. These are absurd. This is absurdness. And the water intake for Ontario is right alongside the discharges from Darlington and Pickering nuclear disease factories. If you want to know more about that, I've done presentations just on that subject only. Hope everybody's doing good. I know there's some confusion for people out there, so I'm going to walk you through some important stuff, because you hear about americium all the time, but it's the 238 has a half-life of 1.5 hours, 1.6 hours. It's going to decay to plutonium after 1.6 hours to plutonium-238, which has a half-life of 87 years. Then it decays to 234 uranium. Not that that matters. None of us will be around. Neither will the species. 239 americium half-life is 11 hours. It also decays to plutonium. So this is super important, these little facets. So they'll talk about americium. Oh, it decays after 11 hours by 50%. Yeah, but it decays into plutonium 239 with a 24,000 year half-life. There's 10 half-lives. 240 americium is 2.1, and the 240 plutonium is a 6,561 year half-life. And neptunium does the same thing, where it decays to plutonium for most of the times. 241 americium, these are popular in studies from releases, actually got a 432 year half-life, and then it decays to 237 neptunium with a 2.4 million year half-life. And these are fission products. The 238 neptunium decays to 238 plutonium in 2.11 days. And 239 neptunium has a 2.3 day half-life. It decays to 239, which is a 24 year half-life. So you're starting to see patterns, right? Because they don't want to talk about plutonium, but they'll talk about neptunium and americium, and they decay right away within a couple of days to plutonium. So it's really dishonest the way that they report on this. The 240 neptunium has a 1 hour half-life, whereas the 240 plutonium is 6,000 years, 6,500 years after 1 hour. So they don't mind reporting on neptunium americium. They just don't want to tell you what it decays to within a few hours or days at most. The 241 neptunium only got a 13.9 minute half-life. We've covered a lot of studies where they acknowledge the neptunium, but refuse to say that it's going to decay into a heavy emitter, which plutonium is named after. Just got 3 more of these that I wanted to mention. 241 plutonium with a 14 year half-life, see? And then it's going to decay to a neptunium with a 2.1 minute, and then a 242 plutonium with a 374,000 year. Workers needed in Japan's nuclear wasteland. They conveniently forgot to mention the word nuclear for some reason. Victims needed in Japan's nuclear wastelands. They shouldn't be growing food in a nuclear wasteland. This is not rocket science. Miyagi Prefecture. So, of course, Miyagi is just a few miles away from ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns. Local farmers facing the urgent task of securing labor. Local farmers in Miyagi in a nuclear wasteland, and they're shipping that food to Canada and everywhere else, of course. Meanwhile, the restoration of farmland damaged by the tsunami has been completed, excluding the Fukushima prefectures. 463. So this is where they're growing food in the nuclear wasteland. The food is banned in 14 prefectures by 55 countries for over a decade. And so no matter where they're growing it in Japan, I mean, they're growing it right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation. What more do you need to know? And you can give your loved ones leukemia in just a few days by feeding them this stuff. You can get leukemia by going out and eating this stuff. And they're desperate to give it to you. You don't want to be eating, they shouldn't be growing food in the middle of a nuclear wasteland, my goodness. The restoration of farmland damage has been completed. But this is a nuclear wasteland they're talking about. You can't complete it, you can't clean it up, you can't just pretend you're going to put it all, the radioactive fallout in a bag. It doesn't actually work that way. It's still melting down, right? Decided to reconstruct farmland damaged by the tsunami. But they're in a nuclear wasteland, right? And so this is how they disarm you. They talk about stuff like that. Quake-prone Indonesia explores sites for nuclear power plants. So Indonesia, it's brutal earthquakes. It's brutal. The whole country is on a fault line. There's nowhere you can build it safely, right? And Indonesia had some in the 2004 tsunami. Was it 2004? That was 2004, yeah, that's right. So, you're talking about small modular reactors that don't exist. Nuclear is going to be a source of baseload power, the same class as geothermal. So first off, geothermal is a better application than a nuclear, or coal, or gas, or oil. Why is the world ignoring nuclear? I don't understand that. So the best solution is geothermal. It's right under everybody's feet. There's 1 billion times more energy right under your feet in geothermal than the entire planet currently uses. There you go. I'm going to bring in Kevin. We haven't heard from Kevin forever.
Hello.
Hi, Kevin. It's Dana. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm getting there. I still got another month or so to go. How's your recovery?
Well, I'm getting there too. It's been a long one.
Yeah, you had they split you wide open, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a long recovery. That's a huge.
Split me open, gashed my stomach, harvested an artery out of my leg. Oh, then when that was all done, a few weeks later, stuck a pacemaker in me. So yeah, it's been ugly. It's been a hard fight, but I'm doing good now. I mean, I'll be 12 weeks out on Tuesday. I'm in a 12-week recovery program. I escaped out of the recovery center a week early. I fled, so I'm home after all that time, finally.
Yeah. Have you been out on the trail to any protests lately?
No, but I'm getting ready to.
Are you?
Yeah. I'm getting ready to travel. I haven't been healthy enough. I haven't been strong enough.
No. No, you got a long way. You got a long way to go yet.
No, not really. I mean, I see my doctor on Tuesday. We'll see what he says, but I'm doing good.
You're feeling
I've been
better.
through this before.
Yeah, you're feeling better.
Well, I had open heart surgery in 2017, and I kept telling them that valve was bad, and it's been bad for a while. And I knew it. They wouldn't listen to me. Wouldn't listen to me. It ruptured right above the valve, so I had 2 heart attacks, and it destroyed my aortic artery. So it said it took 2 hours to get through the breastbone because of the scar tissue from before. But yeah, so my body has been through it and suffered so long for them 4 or 5 years. It's been an ugly battle for me physically since 2011. I mean, I've been under it. And I leukemia, 2 open heart surgeries. My gallbladder ruptured. I lost my teeth. So, ever since Fukushima, oh boy. So, but
Yeah.
there's big news out of Japan. It's being underreported. Of course, nobody's reporting it, but Japan reported it that TEPCO's admitting full blown out meltdowns now, and they claim on March 30th that they actually got a robot for the first time. They're backtracking all TEPCO's lies and saying that they actually got a camera to the platform at number 1.
Right.
And they said that 440 tons. I mean, that generator that sits on there's 440 tons on that core. And that big concrete platform it's bigger than, anybody's house. It's giant, those platforms. And they said when they got there is no platform. It's gone. The heat from the cores is so intense that it melted all the concrete. And they said they see some rebar and they see some debris. And then they went ahead and said 90% of the fuel they know actually has fallen into China syndrome. So that's giant news, and they're using the word triple meltdowns now, TEPCO, for the first time. So it's just...
Right, it lost all the fuel pools in the 4 buildings. And
they lost 6 fuel pools, plus the common spent fuel pool.
8 fuel pool, the common spent fuel pool. And reactor 6, looks like they lost that too, because they redacted all those pictures, right?
Yeah.
And so we're...
Now, like you said, why would they redact those if, And I have photographs that are classified. They got sent to me in the first month. I had a lot of classified shit sent to me. I have photographs of the tunnels underneath in there, when they were underneath in the wreckage. So I knew right up the get that these were full-blown meltdowns, and it's been nothing but lies the whole time.
It was 2 years before they changed their Wikipedia page to acknowledge meltdowns. For the first 2 years, they refused to acknowledge it. It got acknowledged, but they refused to do it publicly. All the media wasn't reporting on it. You were.
The NRC didn't even. The NRC, the NRC and IAEA, which ranks the nuclear disaster on a 1 to 7 scale. Do you know that the NRC didn't even rank it a 7? They ranked it a 7, but not till 3 years.
That's right.
And IAEA was 3 years. Gunderschild was calling it a hydrogen blast for 7 years. 7. So he called it a hydrogen blast clear into 2017.
And of course, the hydrogen was created by the meltdown. The burning of the zirconium cladding, right?
I mean, when you get a hydrogen blast, please, what's a hydrogen blast?
They use uranium, like a few grams of uranium in fracking, and it makes it 8 times more explosive with the dynamite. So imagine all of this stuff burning, and then you have this plume, and then it ignites, right, Kevin?
Oh my God. The amount of MOX fuel, the amount of spent fuel that was in those pools is the biggest probably load on Earth.
Yeah.
The MOX fuel here is against the law.
That's right. Canada too.
They backdoor. It was us as activists made it illegal, so they just simply backdoored it like they do everything else with America and sent it to Japan.
It was made by France. Yeah, France made it.
Well, France was in with
and United Kingdom. I'm sorry, both United Kingdom and France. Yeah.
And U.S. Arriva, which was the French company, was partnered up with Chicago Bridge and Iron. doing the MOX fuel at Savannah River, Georgia, which, by the way, Chicago Bridge and Iron's bankrupt went to zero in 2017, and they partnered with Westinghouse. Westinghouse went bankrupt, took Toshiba with them, and the World Bank bailed out Toshiba.
Brookfield snatched them up, yeah.
So Arena's been bankrupt so many times that the government of France is building out that really who is the government in France? The nuclear industry. Same in Canada, same in the U.S.
Yeah.
So much money has flowed to these people. I call it simply the nuclear energy tail wagging the government dog. There's so much pork that has gone out and so much funding that's gone out. Their pinnacles, they become the government. They are the government. You know, so the amount of fuel, this disaster is so gigantic. We were talking about it today, me and an asshole professor who I've been having a lot with. And I told him, you know, I looked him right in the eyes today, and I says, boy, you sure ruined your legacy. I bet your grandkids hate your guts. I says, you know, you covered this up and didn't say anything for all those years, and you're a Weber State biologist. She's retired now. I says, you know what? I looked right. I says, I'm so glad you branded yourself in history, which they did. All these people that have been all over now, I kept saying it. I've been saying it the whole time, this whole 12 years. Go ahead, let them go. People get pissed at them. Let them brand themselves in history. Let them put their names all over. This is a hydrogen blast. This is a crippled reactor. This is nothing.
And they did too, folks. Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, they labeled themselves the biggest criminal scumbag derelicts in world history, all of them, including Trump, including Obama, including Biden, and everybody that's associated with them, including every U.S. senator. You know, they labeled themselves.
It's something
because
total corruption, eh?
It's beyond corruption because, you know, for years I've said
sedition,
there's no way they can cover this up forever. This isn't a social issue it's not going away. And so people are going to look back, you know, not this generation because they're so indoctrinated. They're all, you know, in political theory, they're all sending Trump a check from the prison cell or Obama,
well-disciplined slaves, aren't they, boy? Yeah.
Yeah, they're just you know, fainting ghosts have been hypnotized by Operation Foxconn News and others. So
snowflakes, yeah.
Once this all shakes out, I mean, people are going to look back at this generation and all these people in power and just hate them. I mean, really hate them.
It's coming. It's already started, yeah.
It's already starting to happen. You're seeing it. It's like I told that guy, I told him right to his face, I bet your grandchildren hate your guts. And his wife I bet they do. Because these kids, they know. A kid come up to me in the university, a 22-year-old, and he's a chemistry major. And he says, hey, Kevin, I knew you years ago, you know, when we came here on a field trip when you were still teaching. He says, how do they possibly still say Chernobyl's the worst nuclear disaster? He says, it's laughable, he said. I mean, so the youth, they know. And so...
Yeah, they're working hard in the schools trying to brainwash the children, but... it is not working.
The internet.
Yeah, it's not working at all.
The internet.
Yep.
These kids are so internet
They're
savvy,
wrecking it.
And their minds have they watch so much internet, and they've grown up with so much internet, and they've seen so much propaganda in lives. These kids, this generation has got filters like no other. They can filter through bullshit faster than any generation in human history. So they're not buying it.
Yeah, they're born with a Google in their hand, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, my two grandkids, all my grandchildren, they're geniuses comparably. I mean, they're unbelievable.
For their ages, it's amazing. Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
And so the thing is now that this cover-up's gone so long, and, you know, I call them the half-nukers, you know, and so the half-nukers have been the problem over the years, you know, the Helen... Japanese are tidy people. Busby threatened me in the bone marrow transplant when I was sick. Sent me real threatening emails. He wrote a song about me. You know, he was the biggest phony of them all, said the Pacific Ocean is a big place, it'll dilute. And then, of course, there's Gundershill, who actually was paramount on the cover-up at 3 Mile Island. Have you seen the new documentary out on 3 Mile Island that came out last year on Netflix?
I did, yeah. Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Well, It just
propaganda.
shows it, right? Well, a lot of it's propaganda, but it does verify for the first time
it does.
that was full blown out meltdown, and they just lied and brought it here to Idaho National Lab, which I knew that. For years they brought all the debris to Idaho here, right here. And, but in that documentary, even Rick, who I know, he still half nuke it. He's like, well, I still believe in the technology. Those guys are the worst. There's the problem, the half nukers. Anybody is like plowshares, Megan Rice is, that's a hierarchy. Sister Snow, when I was at the trial, I was helping writing the answers for the Kansas City group to the judge who had broke into the mound. And I said to her, I said, you probably hate me, I says, because they've always said they're okay with the technology. They just don't like the nuclear bomb. And I says, well, you probably hate me because I took over the field on Megan Rice. And she says, no, Kevin. You set it straight. You're right. We were wrong. One is the other. She says, I think you were sent by God.
Yes, it's quite the shock. It's quite the shock when people wake up.
It is. And then you got the Kevin Camps of the world. Kevin Camps told me right to my face that
a piece of shit, Kevin Camp.
Yeah,
he's a piece of shit. He's beyond nuclear, folks. He's a piece of shit.
He is the worst.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit, that guy.
So I knew John Hurley, because I spent all those years in D.C. John Hurley was head of the National Press Corps. He was recently passed. Oh, you should have heard him rip on Kevin Camps and his wife. He just ripped them a new ass because, they're paid by the nuclear industry. And this is coming right from John Hurley.
That's disgusting.
The lion. Yeah.
The control opposition is what Kevin's talking about, folks.
That's exactly what they all were. Yeah. And so if you got on television, RT used to interview me constantly because I started the Million Mass March, and I used to tell John those guys creep me out because they're really Russian, they're pro-nukers. And they used to interview me constantly, and anytime I talk about nuclear, they'd chop it out. But anything I talk social issues, I was all over their TV. But if you show up on any television station, even a local station as a so-called anti-nuclear, boy, did they end up being pieces of shit and branding themselves in history.
Yeah, Canada's university's media is 100%. So is America. It's 100% pro-nuclear. For folks who are not aware, go ahead, Kevin.
Right. I mean, I'm an ex-professor at the University of Nuclear. I mean, we're GE. We are the nuclear industry, number one school business. We got bought out a long time ago, but think about David Suzuki, the way he sold us down.
Yeah.
He's the god in Canada.
He stabbed everybody in the back, that one.
Down the river.
Yeah. I cover him regularly. His scumbag,
I know people that know him personally. You know how he lives? You seen the house he lives in?
He lives on this island out in British Columbia.
Yeah, he lives, right. He
with
lives
an oil company executive for a neighbor.
Yeah, he's a
big island,
that's how
man.
these people live.
Tropical rainforest, yeah.
Even Bill Nye come out recently and says that nuclear has to be a part and said he supported small nuclear. I mean, they're just bought and paid for propaganda fools.
Yes, like to come out pushing and something that don't exist on top of that, and refuse to be humans. Their job is not to not lead you down the path of reality, but lead you down the path of idiocy. How to be an idiot,
right? The thing that
right?
bothers me the most about this whole 12-year journey, because I've been anti-nuclear my whole life, and I was a pretty famous professor, and everything I said and everything I did was correct and right. And the thing that bothers me the most, the way that the governments, the so-called NGOs, the activist community, the philanthropists of the world, they all turn their backs on us and just let these guys run rickshaw and just slander us, attack us, viciously just destroy our lives. When all we were trying to do was, alert the world and do the, what PhD does.
Doing the right thing, right? Doing the right thing is a crime, yeah.
Well, a traditional PhD, that's what I am. A traditional PhD simply takes on a subject matter of new knowledge, and they hypothesize the knowledge, which I hypothesize these were full-blown out meltdowns. It's going to genocide the ocean. Then you got to do the field work. Then you do all the field work. Then you defend your work, and then if you're right, you're right. It becomes the knowledge. That's true. That's all that is. And nobody's going to accept our work. Nobody's going to come in and say, hey, I'm a philanthropist, I'm a university endowment, I'm an environmental attorney, I'm an NGO. We have several $100 million. You know, we want to sponsor you. We want to help you. No, not a one.
Not a single one. They're controlled opposition. That's why they exist, right? Their job is to play the part of me and you without the reality attached to it. Their job is to
David versus Goliath. You know,
sell the song and dance. Yeah, something.
I said in 2011. I said in March of 2011, all new knowledge will be persecuted. But, you know, I was an honor student at 16 years old. I was already in a biology department, you know, and I got mentored by that. But I really was, I learned to study Einstein. And Einstein was the fiercest anti-nuclear of them all. And he said that if, he hated nuclear energy. They banned him from the Manhattan Project. And people think that somehow he invented nuclear. He never invented nuclear. He hated nuclear. He wrote the letter he didn't write that letter. Leo wrote that letter. He said his biggest regret was signing it to FDR. But the bottom line, he predicted all this. He said if we ever get a meltdown and this genie gets out of the bottle, he says it's going to cause every piece of DNA on the Earth, every piece of biology on Earth, animals, humans, to be mutated and altered for at least 50 generations. He talked about it would cause pandemic, it would cause viruses, it would cause death, all these diseases. That's Einstein.
Yeah. And he was right, too.
He was right. He was right the whole time. And yet, we can't even say things. I can't even hypothesize because, any YouTube, Twitter's the worst, by the way. All of them just go after me. I can't even do my good, strong videos in my activism anymore with a camera in people's face because YouTube takes them down.
Yeah, there's 10,000 lobbyists got jobs at YouTube, and they got the key. Yeah. Their job is to protect certain industries. And of course, Google spent a couple. Yeah, Google spent a couple of billion on nuclear already on the fusion side. Yeah. So that's as pro-nuclear you're going to get because they're not going to get a return.
No. So the money is all pork. So Price-Anderson, which was passed in the 1950s, which is the Immunity Act, the Department of Energy, which is the DOE, it was started out as the Department of Nuclear. Man, just, how much funding they got from the United States government just this year alone? Just this year. And this was down a hair from last year. $160 billion in 1 year.
Yeah, they want $700 billion just for Hanford.
Well, they get all this
just
money
to try to clean it up. Go ahead, Kevin.
That's a whole different fund. This $160 billion, where does it go? They use it for propaganda, PR firms. They go to media, they buy them, and that's where all the money's spent. Stephen Bechtel, because Bechtel was the nuclear gods who built all the nuclear and everything, he got called to the Hill they were paid to put triple liners around the tanks at Hanford, and they never did, and people were accusing him of fraud, so he got called to the Hill by Congress. He was on the Hill, and he was asked point blank, you were paid to put these triple lines on Hanford, you didn't do it, and he threw it right back on Congress. No, we didn't do it, but that's your fault. And they're like, what do you mean? You passed Price-Anderson again in 2005 for 20 more years. The Immunity Act, we don't have to. Just because you're appropriating the money, we can do whatever we want with the money. And we decided we didn't want to use the money for what we told you we was going to do. We used it for something else. And they said, well, what did you use it for? He says, to create PR firms to go against the anti-nuclear.
There's not a lot of anti-nuclear. There's
not anymore because they've taken them out.
But there's still jack shit,
and there's no anti-nuclear movement because they killed them all.
Yeah, if they get rid of what's left, they won't have a job anymore.
Well, think about it. What is it down to? Kevin Blanche and a freaking YouTube camera and Dana Durnford. That's what it's down to because the anti-nuclear community they bought them. They went to them. Greenpeace and Sierra Club used to be anti-nuclears. They're not now. Same with Friends of the Earth. They used to. I know them all. I talk to them.
The big so-called anti-nuclear like Greenpeace are regurgitating the mainstream narrative. And
they're pro-nuclears now.
They're selling the same narrative. as the pro-nuclear. And so it's 100% capture almost. We're outliers.
Well, they bought them. They went to them and gave them money. When
Oh,
you have
yeah.
millions of dollars to spend.
All the media put Greenpeace donate buttons on their websites, for goodness sakes. You can't get any more insider than that, right?
You look at the grant endowments that are put out by the Department of Energy and the nuclear labs a year to universities. Hundreds of universities get hundreds of millions of dollars a year from the DOE to promote nuclearism. I watch for these. You know, you got to search for it, but it's out there. And all these universities get these giant sums of money.
I cover it all the time. It's ridiculous. And like, they're burning a ridiculous amount of money on the small modular reactor industry that don't even exist. They're making sure that the industry doesn't fade away. They're desperate.
Well, Utah here in Utah, we used to be fierce anti-nuclear. You know, there's only one municipality in the world, government municipality, that's funding SMRs, and it's Utah, and it comes right out of our power bills. I was part of the group that got through. It's called AMPS. It was for alternative energy. We got that bill through to mirror the California bill 20 years ago, and then they tweaked it. So the nuclear industry went into the legislature, and it was me fighting against them, against NuScale, just me against them. I was there every day, and they went in, and they changed the law to wind and solar to say that small nuclear energies were renewable and get the money. So Utah, get this, Utah has already paid $800 million out of our power bills the last 10 years to NuScale. And it's coming out of our bills every day.
And NuScale has been around for 18 years, folks. It still hasn't produced a reactor and barely has a design. Go ahead. Yeah.
People don't know this about NuScale, but NuScale was started at Idaho National Lab by Jose Reyes, okay, at Idaho. Now, he worked there. So he got the original government grant all these years ago, and the original government grant was a company called Kenwood Financial. I'm the guy that exposed the Kenwood Financial. It was a Ponzi scheme from South America. In fact, the guy who ran the Ponzi scheme, he's in prison in South America. That was the original funding they got. Then they were going to the government to get their matching funds, and Fukushima happened in 2011. So they got all screwed up. You know, their propaganda machine was down, but they had somehow, I'm lobbying, I'm in the hospital, and they got Utah to sign on. But so when Trump became president, he changed the head of the NRC from Allison McFarland to what's her name, who used to be a professor around here. I'm trying to think of her name. Anyway, she used to work at Idaho National Lab with Jose Reyes. They worked together.
McFarland ran away to Canada.
Yeah, I know Allison personally. You know,
she ran away. Like, I was really shocked that she had defected over to British Columbia, Canada, and became a professor over there, and became pretty anti-nuclear. She's
always been anti-nuclear. You know, she at MIT was even anti-nuclear.
When she was running the NRC, right? She used to run the NRC.
Right. Right after, when Fukushima happened, Gregory Jackal was head of the NRC.
Right.
He was inside the situation, and he cowered down like he sees me at the Santa Opera because he's moved to San Diego. He runs and hides. So he got replaced. He got kicked out by Obama, and they replaced Allison McFarland. Allison McFarland is the anti-Yucca Mountains. She wrote the book and stopped Yucca Mountains.
Oh, is that right? And she's also
that's her.
She done the studies on the small modular reactor fuel cycle. And
it was 5 times worse than the major nuclear reactor.
Yeah, 5 times more high-level fuel.
Recently.
That's right. 30 times more intermediate, or high-level intermediate, and 31 times more low-level, but it's still, low-level in this comparison is very high levels, right? But compared to the fuel rods themselves, it's considered low. And that I see that bounced around all the time. That's legit, you know. And that's a big thorn.
The big issue on this that people aren't hammering. Here's the big issue. So when she left and Trump got elected and replaced Kathleen into the head of the NRC, she used to work with Horace Reyes, so they didn't have a license. The NRC had shot down the NuScale's approval. They shot it down. They shot it down. Allison McFarland denied it. This ex-worker and co-worker of Jose Reyes that worked approved it in 2017. And I'm like, wait a minute, they work together. That's freaking conflict. That's against the law. Greenpeace, Sierra Club, somebody needs to file suit against this. That's illegal. That's against the law. And so when Biden got in, he took her right out and replaced, but they still, it got approved on the license, which gave them funding to let them go public. They went public. And, SMR, it started at $10 on the New York Stock Exchange. It went to 15. It's trading at 8. They don't have any product. They don't have anything. But that's nothing new. They don't intend to ever have a product. They get all this free government money. Here's Jose Reyes flying around on his Learjet like he's God. And we got Governor Cox, who's now, in bed with Bill Gates, says he's going to fund Bill Gates's and Utah Power. They're claiming they're going to build an SMR factory right here in Cameron, Wyoming. No, they're not, but we're already funding it.
They don't have the distributor network. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't
have anything.
They don't even have a reactor design that's complete into the regulatory agencies. And if they did, it's going to take 3 to 5 years for a million pieces of paper to get looked at. They're going to have to redesign a lot. They're going to find flaws, right?
Here's the thing.
They're going to kick it back to the company.
There's no such thing. They know there's no such thing. They know it. But they know that under the Immunity Act, under the Department of Energy, they get the federal grants, and they get all these hundreds of millions, and they don't have to pay it back.
That's right.
It's like in Utah. NuScale was supposed to have 24 modular reactors, small modular reactors, online in Utah by 2019.
Yeah, right.
Then they said 12. Now they're saying 6 by 2020, and they just keep getting.
Now they're saying if they don't have enough people signed on by 2024, they got to pay back all the investors because that was part of the original agreement. Because people are walking away because they tripled the original estimate for megawatt of power.
Dana, they don't give a shit about investors because all the government money is government money, and I just told you, Price Anderson
is not meant to succeed.
They don't have to pay it back.
Right, and for people,
need investors.
And for people who don't know what Price Anderson was, it was
the Immunity Act. It still exists.
It meant that the industry, you couldn't hold them accountable for large accidents. It came out of the taxpayers.
But here's the deal. They get all the money up front through the Department of Energy. These grants are just huge, giant, and they know full well they don't ever have to build anything designed, and they don't have to pay it back.
There's no incentive not to be evil.
They fully well know. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, these people, they're diving in and grabbing. They fully well have no intention of ever building a reactor, ever. They know they get the money up front. Hundreds of millions of dollars through the government. They don't have to pay it back by law. They can do whatever they want with it.
And there's no incentive not to be evil, so what happens?
It's free money. Yeah. It's free money. So I tell everybody in my class, I used to say, go to work at one of the national labs. A lot of students of mine went to work. I used to tell them, you have no integrity. You don't want to do anything. Whatever. You go to work in the nuclear industry at one of the labs. You won't ever do anything. You don't have to do anything. And you're going to get free money the rest of your life. Yeah. Because they're not going to develop anything. It's all a giant. Well, no, 90%.
90% of the money goes to administration. That's the general rule of thumb, anyway, right?
Oh, but the thing is with this is it's just all looted. All of it's just so there is no SMRs. They're not designing any SMRs. They're not even trying to build any SMRs.
No,
it's like Rolls-Royce got in it because it's free government
money. It's disrupting the technology that exists by the different, like Canada has 4 provinces that have signed memorandums of understandings for small modular reactors. So this way they exclude geothermal, they exclude everything else.
Right.
And they live on this fantasy that that's going to come along, but like you're saying, obviously it's not, right?
Well, we call that in economics, we call that opportunity cost. So the opportunity cost, what it does, all the money's flowing to nuclear, so it takes away all the money for real technology. That's the plan.
And they can't share the same.
Out all the life, so the solar gets no money, geothermal gets no money, all these things that exist get no money because nuclear is sucking what's called opportunity costs, and they're sucking the life out of the real solutions, and that's their plan.
Yeah.
That's the entire plan.
Yeah, they like for people that don't understand, they won't shut down a nuclear plant because they didn't build anything to replace it, so therefore they can't shut it down. So therefore you got to give them a lot of money to keep it running, right?
They have in the United States I can't overstate this. California's solar initiative is the greatest success in history. I worked on it when it got through. California's producing 200% solar more a day, to over 200% more a day than they can use. They have nowhere to put it. It's being blocked into the grid into Nevada used to be able to sell it back, and Nevada blocked it and capped it. So the solar initiatives have been so successful, but the states by states have laws that won't let it.
Yeah, Canada. Go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Canada's promoting Canada just bows to the uranium industry.
Yeah, Canada just closed last year. Canada closed 700 solar farms and wind farms in Ontario in the nuclear territory because they were direct competition, right, for the nuclear industry.
When you're getting all that funding, and Canada has the same type of laws. When that's government funding, all these politicians just bow to these nuclear crime centers because they know they're that powerful of lobbyists. They're powerful. And, if you don't bow to them, they'll kill you. And if you don't think they kill people, you don't know anything about Karen Silkwood.
Yeah,
they killed her.
Oh, no, they got a long history, yeah.
Well, look at my path. I was a famous professor at the #1 school of business. Look what they did to me. They railroaded me. They slandered me. They allow, who do you think's paying all these trolls all over the internet? We've tracked it all the way down.
Yeah.
It's the nuclear industry is paying these guys to do this.
Oh, yeah, no, they admit they have 1,000 public relation firms. Their job is to attack people like me and Kevin. And there's basically just me and Kevin.
Yeah,
so
the
they're all attacking us. There's a couple more. There's a few people that are trying, but me and Kevin are at it constantly. And so the industry is going to target us. We're targeted, and that's...
I'm a boots-on-the-ground activist. They all know me personally. Every politician I'm right at them. I show up to stuff, and I'm right in their face.
Your dad used to carry you to protest when you were just a child, right?
I've been going to protest when I was a little kid, but I never had a camera. I had a camera. I never had a site until YouTube come around.
That's right.
And then YouTube, I'm like, YouTube used to call themselves the Great Weekly. I said, I got them now. I can put my content online because I've spoken at hearings for decades, but there's no video content of it. There's photographs, and if you Google around, you'll find written statements by Kevin Blanche to the NRC, written statements all over, and every single person, like the NRC, they all know me personally. All these politicians, the California committee and the boards down there in Utah, in Idaho, they all know me personally. Really personally, and they'll tell you straight up. You go to the California board and you go to the NRC on how we got sent up or shut down, they'll tell you straight up. They'll tell you straight to your face. Well, Kevin Blanche, that's who shut us down, because I exposed all their lies. Same with Blue Castle in Utah. I'm the guy that shut down Blue Castle. I'm the guy that exposed that was illegal funding and did all that dirty work. But we get no credit, and how are we going to be funded? Look how we have, some small grassroots that send us some money here and there, and we live like poor church mice. I live in pure poverty, have for years now. And so no wonder nobody takes this on in a real way. How can they? Because they'll financially ruin you.
Oh, that's the first thing they're going to do, yeah.
So
that's the rule. They got it. They've been doing it a long time, folks who are not familiar with what Kevin's talking about, and they're very
my kids are grown.
They're very disciplined. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I don't have any dependents, so I can live on very small money. I have my house, which I don't owe a lot of money on it, and hell, I've had to have a car donated to me. So I don't have a car payment. I have no credit card debt, because so I can operate on tiny money, barely survive. I sleep in a sleeping bag when I'm working the coast. I stay in the shittiest, dumpiest hotels you ever saw when I'm traveling. Even in Europe, I stay at other activists' houses in Vienna. So that's why there's no real boots on the ground activists, because they can't. They have no funding.
No.
Without
any
money,
you really do. You need. In order to be high profile, it's a lot of money, right? To build a big operation to get attention.
Well, I always thought we'd get some philanthropists, some NGO, somebody who died of cancer. I find, hey, I'm a philanthropist. I got $100 million here. I'm going to find a PR person and set up a farm, blah, 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 and help you. I'll do it.
Well, they do that, and then it gets taken over by the industry right away, right?
Well, Gary in San Diego, Gary got $5 million on that stuff, and he's suing him again, and he doesn't do shit. I'm the guy that got sent up for shutdown. Here's Mike Gary, the attorney. He got $5 million in the whistleblowing fee in California because he filed suit against him, and he didn't even get it shut down. And then after he got the money, he sold it out. So he's just a propagandist for money. He gets $5 million, and I'm the guy that did all the work to shut it down. I didn't get 5 cents. So that's the world we live in as far as anti-nuclear energy activists. And so what do? I mean, we do everything we possibly can. We use YouTube sites. We use social media. We, rely on, a few friends, and that's all we got, which blows my mind. This is the biggest issue in the world. It's the biggest ecological catastrophe in human history.
It's the most important story in history, period. Nuclear is. Every facet of the story. It's a terrible...
Dr. Burroughs is 97 years old at Weber State. 97. You know what he told me? This is a couple years ago. He's been telling me this the whole time. He says, Kevin Blanch, you are branded in history as the whistleblower with the greatest event in human history. You are synonymous with it.
Kevin.
I says, yeah, look how I live.
Kevin, yeah, no, it's true, but I'm not seeing no nuclear renaissance. Are you seeing a nuclear renaissance?
No, that's all propaganda bullshit.
Yeah.
There's no nuclear
it's all posturing. It's all posturing.
In fact, I can tell you what
So
happened
we've won. But imagine how much more damage we can do to this industry if we were funded properly. Yes. We can wreck. I've said it many times. I could wreck the industry for about $1 million. I mean, I can wreck it. I could wreck it.
A lawyer and some PR. All we'd have is a couple PR people.
And the reason
we'd kill them.
Yeah, the reason me and you could wreck the nuclear industry is because we hate their guts. See?
Right.
We're in it for all the right reasons. We got all the right reasons. Yeah.
Yeah,
we have every right to hate the industry, and everybody else should too.
Bone marrow transplant center clinging to life for 5 years. Watch my dad be loaded in a body bag. Watch Annika be loaded in a body bag. The health things. I mean, my skin's so in the game. People have no clue. And so, but the fact of the matter is, here we are. Okay, for instance, in Europe, the taxonomy. Okay, France is clinging on to it, and Austria and Germany are saying, fuck you. So is Italy. So is Spain. So the taxonomy, you read the media the last few days because they signed an agreement, and the agreement's got no nuclear in it, and it says France gets a big win. You read through it, all they got was, if you can prove that you can produce hydrogen, SMR nuclear, without any waste, we'll fund money to you, but you have to show us that first.
They can't do it.
That's the EU. Right?
That's right. It can't be done.
So the new EU taxonomy, which is a big deal, because that's all the funding, there's going to be none go to nuclear. None.
Yeah,
Zero.
No, as far as UK just called nuclear their taxonomy down there. They're using the same as the EU's. They're calling it green technology, but it just simply, you can call it whatever you want. You can put all the roses on it you want, but it's still not going to succeed because the industry is not genuine. It doesn't have redeeming qualities.
The EU taxonomy was signed 3 days ago. It's a done deal, and there's
in the UK, yeah.
So EU, so you got the UK, you got the United States, you got the Queen's bitches, which is Canada, the United States, and they can go along.
Yeah, Canada's a lost cause, man. Canada's a lost cause. But we've killed the industry as far as I can tell. We effectively destroyed their ability to be prolific.
You would think that they put on 9 million reactors. The Vogel in South Carolina has partially gone to the grid, partially. That's the only. You know how many reactors have been shut down post Fukushima in the United States? I can start rattling them off.
Yeah, I've covered them all. Yeah.
Arnold, 3 Mile Island, Indian Point, Oyster Creek. I go on and on and on.
There's
these reactors
13
or
14 of them. Yeah.
Oh, we're talking 30 of them.
I say you protested at every one of them.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
And they're shut down. And so how's their uranium renaissance? Same in, okay,
There's no renaissance. That's what I was asking. Go ahead.
54 reactors offline. Oh, they're going to turn them. No, they're not turning them back on. How about Germany?
It's posturing,
20
though.
reactors.
They don't have the
How many
manpower in any of these countries, folks. They don't have the supply network. They don't have the consensus, and they don't have the system to pull it off. And because it takes so long,
to support them.
they don't know at all. It's 100% posturing, right?
Well, I'll tell you what. They had a Fukushima event I went to in 2014 or 13 in Munich. You know how many people showed up in Munich? 2 million. So, anti-nuclear energy. So, in Germany, there are 20 reactors in Fukushima have. Angela Merkel's a nuclear physicist.
Yeah, they only got 3 now, right? So,
and they're shutting down this month.
They're shutting down this right this month, April the 10th, was it? I believe.
That's my birthday. They're shutting it down on my birthday.
April 10th. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Belgium shut
Awesome.
theirs down. They just announced. Belgium just out of nowhere shut one down 2 weeks ago, just out of nowhere. So
I missed that one.
Just pulled the plug.
Oh no, that's right. I caught that one. Yeah.
And
so they got 2 left.
All these countries are shutting them down. Even France is shutting nuclear reactors down.
Yeah,
so you can
France got no water.
all you want. You got the U.S. propaganda and you got Putin propaganda. They're pro-nuclear idiots. Both of them. And so, but the fact of the matter is, they're shutting down here. But they're going to take the money. We still just keep throwing the money at them.
Well,
and same in Canada.
Even if you shut down all nuclear right now, folks, you're still going to need $1 trillion a year to deal with the nuclear waste and the nuclear legacy. A year.
What do you do?
They got no way of fixing it.
I was in Canaveral in '97 when we shot a load into space. We shot a load of one of the reactors of plutonium into space in '97. Miko Kako was there. He was arguing with me. He didn't want to do it. I said, yes, we're going to do it. He says, the rocket could blow up. And I said, of course the rocket could blow up, but if it does, we don't get this out of here, it's going to blow up on Earth here. So I told Miko Kako in 2011. And, I talked to him, and I told him, well, you were wrong, because it blew up at Fukushima. And he says, yeah, you were right, Kevin.
Is it better to have a rocket or a Fukushima blow up, see?
So what do you do with this freaking waste? There's no answer. Just keep making more.
Well, what people don't, and the reason the waste is bad, folks, is it's still splitting the atoms into the environment.
For hundreds of thousands of years.
And this is
people think that they
perpetual
use natural
disease.
uranium from the Earth in a nuclear reactor. That's not what's in a nuclear reactor. That's not what they use. They centrifuge it. We use what we call uranium-235. They have to hex gas it. They have to spin it. That's the nastiest thing in the world. And this stuff stays hot for hundreds of thousands of years.
The separation is madness, how much they release into the environment.
Well, you know what's in that shit? Well, plutonium, for one. I mean, there's thousands of elements.
Well, curium byproduct is the biggest byproduct. And curium's 20 times worse than plutonium.
And say, oh, we got some tritium. Well, if you have tritium, you have everything else. I love how they panic paint, cesium-137, tritium, but what about plutonium? What californium, tennessium, livermorium, all these heavy metals.
Yeah.
They don't mention those.
They go in the
atmosphere and they kill you.
Yeah, the whole process, like the small modular reactors, I just wanted to mention for people that are not aware, the trick they're using with that is you got to use high-assay mixed oxide fuel. So this is absurdness to do to a planet.
And so intense.
The releases, the releases into the environment.
National Lab in 1961.
Go ahead,
They
Kevin.
used this exact fuel in 1961 at Idaho National Lab, and it blew up. That's exactly what Santa Susana was. Santa Susana was the
sodium,
the condensed fuel on an SMR at Santa Susana that blew up. So every time they tried one,
460 times worse than 3 Mile Island, Santa Susana, for the people that are not aware.
And that was an SMR that blew up in Russia on 8/8/2019. You can look it up. That was an SMR.
Oh, the Mayak?
Nuclear physicist.
The Mayak?
No, it wasn't near Mayak. It was on the White Sea. They were testing, and it blew up. And
a couple of years ago. Last year or the year before, wasn't it?
2019.
Okay, yeah. I covered that. Yeah, that's right.
2019.
Nuclear missiles.
These SMRs do not work.
Nuclear engines, was it? Nuclear engines blew up?
It was an SMR, and the reason we know that it was an SMR, there's several byproducts that came not from a nuclear rocket, that come from a SMR
It was a reactor.
There's certain elements, and they picked them up in Sweden, in Norway. Cesium-137. You know, there you go.
Yeah, I covered it. It was a big release.
And it killed the 8 top nuclear physicists in all Russia. It killed them dead.
Yeah, it killed a lot of
That's
people
something
in the
happening
local
right now.
cities too. That were they were like shelter in place in those cities, which means it's permanently radioactive, right? Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, same thing with Hunters Point in California. Everybody a few years ago saying, well, we set up shop secretly in apartments, we're filming out windows, watching them move it. And there was all kinds of, I'm reporting they're moving it to Idaho. Tied on us secretly. We had guys tracking from my army, watching on the roads, whatever, video. We were right. They were secretly moving it. I mean, that accident they had there. I mean, they dumped this shit all over.
Yeah.
So now they're just moving it to Idaho, to Utah.
James Lucid just put in the comments section, remember this, that they claimed a scientist in Russia died from eating Fukushima crabs. Do you remember that? Yeah, I remember that. That was hilarious. Well,
you remember when the trench, everything washed up dead on the trench a couple years ago, right there by Fukushima, all the big squids, all of a sudden the surfers were saying they had in their eyes and their mouth and they couldn't figure out it's cleaned up. You watch those videos of the first people that shot them out there. They're speaking Russian, but they're saying Fukushima, Fukushima. You know, so, you know, people around the world know. When I'm in Europe, it's night and day compared to Canada and the United States.
Fukushima's an extinction event. Yeah.
They know. They're like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. We're not dealing with that shit. And so it's just us here because
when Grossi said at the Constipated Party Conference of Parties, UN's Conference of Parties 26, 2 years ago in Glasgow, he got on the stage and said nobody died at Fukushima, and the audience blew up laughing. Yeah, the audience blew up laughing. The media had to come out and try to.
The keynote speaker was in Glasgow at the end. Guess who the keynote speaker was? Well,
go ahead.
Bezos and Gates were there in their yachts, but the keynote speaker was your king, Prince Charles. His name is King Charles, and he was introduced as your Royal Highness. That was at the COP in Glasgow. So you put any weight into those
That's right, yeah.
Or the UN propaganda, or the IAEA, or the Department of Energy. It's just a cult for free money. That's all it is. It's wealth and power. They're not going to fix nothing. You know, it has to come from the grassroots, you know. And that's what we do, you and I. So everybody asks me all the time, what is it you do, Kevin? I says, I shut down nuclear reactors for a living. That's what I do.
I wrecked the nuclear industry's hopes and dreams.
Well, they wrecked mine.
Yeah,
you know,
they
so
wrecked planet Earth. They killed planet
the
Earth.
first
Yeah.
stone. No. You know, I call myself a country and version of Hamlet. Oh, curse is spite, I was ever born to set this right. You know, but the thing is it's like they try to kettle us. They take our videos down or whatever, but
book burning, you called it, was it?
They can't put our toothpaste back. You know how many views we got in 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15?
Yes.
Millions and millions and millions.
Yeah, I had videos with millions of views. And
so did I. And so,
now the biggest one I got is like 1,200 or something.
yeah. I mean,
that's a miracle, that one, right? Yeah.
But the damage is done. Like, when something happens, they're like, and that's why I did it, flipping the soup can, the intensity, the visual genre that I use, because the music lyrics, because I knew I needed to penetrate the subconscious, and they would remember. And so when this happened, they do remember. They're like, oh, yeah. Anytime anything nuclear comes in, they're like, oh, no, Blanche was right. He was right. So they could try to, put our toothpaste back in the tube, but good luck to you. It's not going to work. So, we kicked their ass, with no money. It truly is a David versus Goliath story.
Yeah.
Everybody says, Blanche, you need to write a book. Colette says, Spencer says, if Kevin Blanche wrote a book, it'd be 10 feet thick. And I said, well, I've been a little busy trying to stay alive. People don't realize how poor my health has been since 2011. I don't know how my doctors, my kids, my daughters, they're all like, oh my God. It's they don't realize how close I came to death.
That was bizarre. Two of us at the same time had multiple heart attacks, and both of us ended up in the ICU at the same time. It's quite a coincidence. It's quite a coincidence.
Yeah.
I was in the ICU for 20 days. You were probably just as long, right? It was.
Oh yeah.
It was
split open. I was in.
I barely
Yeah, I
survived.
don't know how I didn't die in there.
That's only a month ago,
I know.
right?
Yeah,
I still got a line. I still got.
I had surgery on January 10th. You know, they sawed me all the way open.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I got lucky.
it's
Yeah,
brutal. It's brutal.
they're.
And so,
Go ahead.
and so this whole thing, you know, with fighting the nuclear industry, starting to say, I mean, good Lord, look what we're up against. It truly is biblical. It truly is David versus Goliath. And, you know, we have a small group of people that fund us a little bit here and there. We wouldn't be able to do it without them. You know, so you think about how tiny and grassroots we really are. It's quite the story.
Well, the industry felt they can get rid of us, right? Because we're the biggest threat for sure.
They've been trying to get rid of me for 40, 50 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they're in the overdrive now, though, and
I'm not afraid of them.
no, I'm not worried about them either. It's just that they got no one to pick on, so there's a lot of weight on your shoulders, you know, and because you don't really got anybody else to pick on, right?
Yeah, you know what I tell them right to face. So, you know, you want to fight? Well, what do you want to use for it? You want guns? You want knives? You want nuclear bomb? I'm in. I'm down. Come on. You're punks. You're cowards. You're weaklings. You're nothingness. That's what they are.
They are chicken eggs, yeah. They're inbreeding, right?
Telephone tough guy punks. So I'll fight all those guys all day, every day. They're losers. And just like I told that guy today.
Yeah, they don't fight.
Like I told him today, I bet your grandkids hate your guts. Which they're going to.
Guaranteed.
You know, they're going to go down in history, some of the most hated people in human history. All these people that, you know, covered this Fukushima up and kept promoting nuclear, they're going to go down in history as some of the most hated people on the face of the earth.
So, Kevin, they're moving people back in officially a couple of days ago. They moved people. Well, they opened up the areas right at the nuclear meltdown where you can actually see the nuclear meltdown. Only 10% of the town is open. The other 80% of it, rather, is not open. You're not allowed to cross the street. Go ahead.
Yesterday, who's my friend from San Diego who lives in Japan. She's the activist over there. And I talked to her yesterday about this. She says, that's being fed to you as United States propaganda. Nobody in Japan is moving back in there.
Right.
Just tell them. The Japanese, I don't think people realize, the Japanese hate the nuclear industry, and they know it's the United States government. They're not moving back in there.
No.
They're telling us it's open. People are not that stupid. They're like, oh, hell no.
But the fact that they want to do it, and the fact that they did do something like that where they open it up, I mean, it takes a real... pretty heartless to do something like that.
Sicko, creepo.
That's a degenerate, yeah.
Did you know South Korea came out last week and their government said, what are you talking about? All Fukushima food from the whole region's banned here, and it's going to stay banned.
That's right, yeah.
And the government voted on it, and it 90 to 10, they voted to keep it banned.
Yeah.
But if you look on the internet, you're like, oh, God, the ban's been lifted on everything. No, it's not. China doesn't let it in.
Well, that's the public relation firms, right?
In.
That's the public relation firms out there spreading disinformation.
That's it. So if you get on the internet and look around, oh, God, Fukushima's better. They're letting everybody go home. They've all moved in. It's all hunky-dory. The food's fine. Here in Utah, they ran an ad on Fox 13. Radioactive rice from Fukushima being made into low-carbon plastic.
Yeah.
So I went to them. I said,
I covered that last week.
Fukushima for 4,000 days, and now you're
time for low carbon plastic.
This, Dana. Wait till you hear this one.
Go ahead.
So Governor Cox, who I know personally, who's he got caught recently bringing in Europe's uranium to a uranium mill in southern Utah. So Fox News, a guy I know, Carlisle, went and interviewed him, and guess what the CEO said? The CEO, right on Fox News 13, investigative journalist here in Utah, says, no, we plan on bringing the nuclear waste in from Japan here next.
Yeah.
He said that.
Yeah. I covered it.
So I went to Governor Cox. I says, what the
It's mad. It's absurd. They were going to open up a secret dump here on the east coast of Canada for Japan, too, with the Jean Chrétien, the former Prime Minister.
We don't even know it.
Yeah, well, it won't surprise me, though. But, I mean...
You know the biggest they have to refine this uranium and spin it from 238 to 235 to have the hex gas and spin it. You know where the biggest facility in the world that does that is at?
Los Alamos?
No. I mean, they do a lot of it. It's right there where you are, in Ontario, Canada. It's Bruce.
Oh, Bruce
Right
Power,
there,
that's
the
right.
biggest-
Yeah.
The biggest uranium before this uranium-238, which is byproduct 97%, has to be turned to 235.
Right.
The biggest enrichment plant is in Ontario, Canada, in the world.
The CANDU reactors, yeah. They supply most of the tritium for the bombs too, right?
Yeah, well, that's what they're up to. And so, Paducah, Kentucky had one, and then there's another one in Illinois, and they do it, and they do a huge amount.
Argonne National Laboratory, yeah. A few of the national laboratories do it.
I know claims they don't, but I know better. My friend, who I went to high school, bought the bar up there. I'm up there. I know everything that goes on at INL. I'm up there all the time. And
it's a big facility,
they claim
man.
they're not.
No, they are.
They're not enriching uranium. I says, you're full of shit. He's like, oh, they're enriching uranium out there.
They got like 2,000 buildings up there, for God's sakes. They got, what is it, 800 square miles or something?
It's a gigantic piece of real estate.
Yeah.
It's gigantic, but last time I was up there, they chased me out of there with that goofy-looking Hummer tank thing. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, they like you.
It used to be, on both.
They wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for you.
No, and people that work out, they work for floor. And it's all new scale. It's all government pork, and they've had a big renaissance since Obama and Trump. Obama and Trump were they brought the whole, pork thing back. And Biden's gone along. These three, post-Fukushima nuclear puppets have really funded INL. INL was dead.
NuScale's out of Seattle, right?
Not now. What's that?
NuScale's out of Seattle, right?
No, NuScale's at Oregon State University.
Oregon,
Corvallis,
rather, that's
Idaho,
right.
But it's really was founded at Idaho National Lab.
Right. I've dealt with
And
them.
so
They've trolled me quite a bit.
Oregon State in Corvallis. And so, it's a big Shannon. You know what Corvallis is. That's Kathleen Higleyville.
A piece of shit Higley, yeah.
How pro-nuclear they are.
What a disgusting maggot she turned out to be. I covered her a lot,
They're worse
yeah.
than Weaver State. And Weaver State's bad.
Yeah, there's something,
real
man.
bad.
But they're degenerates for a paycheck. They know 100%. It's not like they don't know the difference. They do it for the paycheck. They got the education to get the job to tell you lies.
Well, in 2005,
It's absurd.
when they were politicking to get Price Anderson through the government, I was speaking all over the country. And I remember I was at a symposium in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and in Knoxville, and they had all these, including all these propaganda professors. And I stood up and I says, okay, there was a big audience, and I says, I want to ask every one of these panel. And there was like 15 of them. They were world experts on nuclear, all pro-nuclear. I says, one of you stand up and tell me how we get the uranium that we use, uranium-238, natural from the earth. How do we turn that into what's used in nuclear energy? Can you tell me? And that's not what we use. We use uranium-235. Can one of you professors get up and explain to this audience that process? And none of them knew.
Wow.
No, they couldn't. They tried. They got up there, and you should have seen them babbling and stumbling. So I got up and gave a dissertation. I says, they take the uranium-238 from the earth, they haul it to an enrichment factory, they gas it with hex gas, they spin it in a giant massive cylinders until the atoms collide together, then they use a separation process that draws it to the outside. It leaves a 97% byproduct. Then they capture it, then they make people like Karen Silkwood with gloves on, put it in little pellets in cylinders. That stays hot forever. It's totally man. It produces plutonium. It produces californium. It produces all these heavy metals. And not one of these propaganda professors who are supposed to be the top in the country, not one of them knew anything about that process.
Yeah,
not one.
They don't want to tell you the process, right?
Well, because they're paid propagandists. So, they'll tell you, oh, uranium is natural from the earth. I'm like, that's not. Oliver Stone's new movie says
well,
that.
yeah, it's natural, but I mean, it has to be reclaimed. It has to be.
That's not what we use. I can't overstate.
No.
Uranium-238 from Earth is not what's used in a nuclear energy exchange. We use uranium-235.
No, well, the Canadian reactors, the CANDU reactors, do use a lot of natural 238, But they're bombarding it with the neutrons, right, to split.
Right, that's the process. Exactly, Bruce. That's the process
They,
I'm talking
they still
about.
have to.
They
They
blast with
still
the
have.
neutrons,
Yeah.
They spin it, they hex it, so it's not really. They're not using 238. They're enriching 238 to turn into 235.
You're right. That's right.
What they're doing in
Yeah.
Canada. Bruce.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what they're doing.
And the
Bruce is
Darlington
biggest
and the
enrichment
rest of
uranium
them.
place probably on the earth.
Yeah,
is
it's
right
a terrible disease factory. It is. Yeah.
Oh, that place is evil, you know, and so
It flows
and they were
down
on
to the
those
east coast
knees
of
in
Canada, down to
2013,
St.
14,
Lawrence.
15, and Canada just all of a sudden out of nowhere in 2016, 17 reversed and started throwing more money at them again. You know, because the uranium industry was and the enrichment, they were done. They were ready to shut them all down.
Canada was captured by the nuclear industry in the 60s, but it was 100% by the early 70s. We have no universities, no medias that are independent. Everything is pro-nuclear.
Well, the nuclear industry funded with our own tax money.
So is the government, right? The government was captured.
Chalk River is the first nuclear accident reported in the world.
Right, in
you know
55. 1955, yeah.
You know who built Chalk River?
Bechtel.
The entire thing, built the whole thing.
Bechtel.
Utah Construction from Ogden, Utah, and Floor, which turned into be Utah Construction is General Electric.
The Americans
today.
run it now, sure.
So people don't know that, but that Utah Construction is General Electric today. They merged in 1975. That's who built up the industry. That's who built Chalk River. First nuclear accident. We don't talk about that one. You know, that's true that
And 57
Jimmy Carter
was.
there.
That's right. I've read all the stories on it, and go ahead.
And, you know, and so the whole 3 Mile Island situation, that big cover-up, and the problem is, it was Lake Barrett, who I know personally. He was the guy, him and Gunner Shill were running 3 Mile Island.
Yeah, they were
and
running.
I hitchhiked all the way across the country. I hitchhiked from Utah to New York, to D.C., to Pennsylvania to protest in 79. And they were the same. They were just lied, told us. There was no meltdown. They told us that for 40 years there was no meltdown. Now they're admitting a meltdown. 40 years later?
I covered the anniversary last week, and it was shocking, the stuff that I found that's not acknowledged by the institutions or the media. It's shocking. It was 100%.
Well, it's just like the fact that all the nuclear waste from 3 Mile Island was transported across the country to Idaho National Lab. People don't even know that.
They had 12,000 trucks or something from Idaho. That's legacy waste.
I mean, it was a meltdown.
That's legacy waste, right?
Oh, and they just and so you got like Rick and all these other guys who I know that have we're against 3 Mile Island, the cover up, but we still like the technology. I'm like, shut the up.
Yeah, no kidding.
How can you say that? You know, and you hear it all the time. Well, we got to keep funding and keep chasing it. No, we don't. Einstein said in 1955 or 53 that we had taken this technology as far as we could take it, and we will never take it any further. He was right. You know, so we just keep battling on, and you know, and
well, we knew,
keep spreading the word.
Like you say, we knew when we took on this. It was going to be a nasty.
The next fight's going to be, and I'm going to head down there ASAP as soon as I get a little help there, is at Diablo Canyon. So Diablo Canyon, this Gavin, I think it's the worst mistake he's ever made. So that fight, Mothers for Peace are gearing up, and they've got some funding and money, and they're going to sue on, you know, because Biden administration's okayed this money. California's appropriated a bunch. They're spending $440 million a day of California taxpayer money to keep the piece of shit open. And it's over its license. So Mothers for Peace, Jane and Linda, I know them all, they've got some funding. They're going to file suit. And anyway, we're going to organize protests there. And we're going to start protesting at Diablo again, ASAP.
Diablo's right on the fault line, right?
Going next.
It's right on the fault line, right? An active fault line.
Yeah, it's right at Apple. They're right there on the, you know, it's right there, San Luis Obispo, right there, Pismo. It's like one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Yeah, and it's
beautiful there.
And you've done tidal zones here, I know.
Their license is expired. They're running on license, and like I told Gavin, I keep sending the emails to him. Look, you don't bring up the fact that this is a nuclear repository now. Harry Reid got that through. I used to fight with them, and then Congress passed it. So you have all that spent fuel, and under the California law and the federal law, there's no licensing for the spent fuel, and you have 40 years of it stacked up. So there's where the litigation is going to be, and their license expired. And I'm here to tell you, California's not going to re-up that license. The NRC is not going to re-up that license.
Well,
and so
they got. It's not going to shut down for another couple of years. They could have something to replace it if they wanted to.
It was supposed to shut down last year.
Yeah.
And then they got an extension. And it's supposed to shut down in 2024, on Christmas Eve 2024. But Gavin keeps saying, well, Gavin's already appropriating money, so did the California legislator, so did the budget. And, the money they're trying to, Holtec's trying to reopen Palisades. There's another one we got shut down, Palisades.
Holtec.
They're trying to reopen that. But ain't going to happen. So the protests are going to be at Diablo Canyon in California and Palisades in Michigan.
Which would be unprecedented because it's already shut down. They've already defueled it, right?
Yeah, they're already in the process of defueling it. And so, of course, Holtec wants to start it back
Chris
up.
Singh, yeah.
As far as Diablo Canyon goes, Californians don't want, they're just, these lobbyists have just snuck this through. I think it's Gavin's worst mistake. I think it's going to cost him his political career, but he don't give a shit. It's just all money. So Diablo Canyon is going to be a big fight because it's on the Ring of Fire. And if you talk to anybody in California,
there is an active.
You mentioned
Go ahead.
Multiple active files there.
Yeah, there's a lot of activists I noticed for Diablo Canyons. Every time you've seen a lot of people participating.
Shane and Linda, that's who the activists are. They always have been. I mean, I go clear back. I've been fighting them since the 70s before they were built. And so, it's called the Abilene Coast Coalition. And so I've been battling Diablo Canyon my whole life. And so, but anyway, that's going to be, and they know it. That's why they're throwing They know, because then California becomes 100% nuclear free. And as California goes, this country's going to go. Just like in Europe, they'll say, if Germany goes anti-nuclear, this continent, do not kid yourself. Germany still rules the roost in Europe. And Germany says no nuclear, and that's why France is fighting so hard. As Germany goes, Europe will go. As California goes, this country will go.
Luxembourg a few years ago in Germany made a law that if you get sick 30 years after a nuclear power plant shuts down in your area, you can still sue the nuclear power plant.
Did you know who's the head of the taxonomy?
That's pretty impressive, man.
He's from Luxembourg. Did you hear him 2 weeks ago? He just ripped France. He went off. He says, "What do you get off? This is not clean. It's not green. And he just point by point bullet. And this is the head of taxonomy, and he's from Luxembourg, which was a created country from the banking industry. I have friends that live in Luxembourg, and so they're powerful little country. Really powerful little country.
They're vehemently anti-nuclear. Yeah.
They are anti-nuclear.
The pro-nuclear community that is there will get the headlines, but the country itself, they turn out folks in the hundreds of thousands every time.
You ain't kidding.
I've never seen anything like them.
They had a protest recently in Belgium, and the protesters lined up and held hands from Belgium to Germany.
That's right.
From two cities 10 miles long. They made a 10-mile human chain.
And
that's why they win in Europe.
They're very thoughtful. They have good displays. They dress up. They bring all kinds of placards. They're
funded by the government, Global 2000 in Austria is funded by the Austrian government. And they get money. You could be a full-time activist and be paid to be in it. If you want to be an anti, that's why Freedom Eisenbach kept trying to talk me into moving to Austria. She's, Kevin, we will fund you. We will pay you to be an anti-nuclear, but then she died.
Right. I was thinking about defecting to Iceland, right? Because the pro-nuclear is so strong here in Canada. I'm under siege the whole time.
And they'd probably give you a freaking full-time check. But, my grandkids say, no, you ain't going. But they're getting older. My grandkids, But somebody's got to stay here and fight these monsters.
That's why I was thinking about going to Iceland, because I can't fight them with all the censorship we have in Canada, right? I mean, I got 26 people on my stream that I've been doing for an awful long time. and it's legit, right? We cover all the great stuff, and I don't mess around. There's no games. It's all legit, and I can only bring in 20 or 30 people. It's absurd to suggest it, right? Same. Right? Like I looked at your site today and yesterday, and it's absurd to suggest the views you're getting is the actual real numbers. It's absurd to suggest it.
I used to spit on the ground and get 4,000 views.
That's right, yeah.
I fuck if I get 150. But people have heard my rhetoric over and over and over and over. You know, and they know it. So I tell everybody this is a graduate program, so I get that. You know, some of my old videos get way
you're
more
censored.
views than my new ones.
You're censored, man.
Well, not only that, a lot of my footage is historical footage that is archived historical stuff that people can watch for decades, like, you know, the reactor coming into Utah, the San Onofre stuff, all that. People are going to look back, you know, so it's educational stuff that people can watch for decades. It's boots on the ground. So that's, you know, the videos that get viewership on mine. People still go to them and watch it. They still watch those videos and learn from them, you know, and so that's, you know, that's the professor.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the real stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so we're making more difference than you think. You know, people come up to me all the time when I'm traveling. All over the world they come up to me, you know, and talk to me, you know, and so, you know, we've penetrated the subconscious, you know, and we've told the truth. The bottom line is this, Dana. When all this was happening, when Fukushima happened, you know, we took a lot of risks because I was, you know, 90% sure, but the world wasn't positive that we were right or this collapse on the ocean and everything. They thought we were full of shit. But the bottom line, it all happened. Everything we said happened.
That's 100%.
And we were right.
We were honest.
Wrong.
We were honest. And that's all that was necessary.
And they
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, what's that famous quote by Martin Luther King? The arc of righteousness and truth. It may be long. It is long. But it will arc towards righteousness and truth. And it's, you know, this is Fukushima is only 12 years old. People say, oh, you know, people got involved with this. Like, you know, I always go back to Jan, Miss Milky, and all these people. They stayed in it for 4 or 5 years. Guys, that isn't how the anti-nuclear movement. It's a lifetime battle. 12 years isn't shit.
It's not
I've
nothing.
been doing this for almost 60. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. You know, oh God, this has been too long. I can't do it no more. Then move on. You should never been in the first place. 12 years isn't shit as far as you know, a movement and an activism. So this fight, you know, we're halfway there. You know, 12 years.
You don't want to discourage people from trying, right?
Right. So, but you need to stay in it. You know, even if it's at a low thing. But don't get discouraged and say, God, I'm not getting anywhere because I've been at this for 3-4 years, and you're going to quit.
I've been at it for over 20 years, and
yeah, it takes a long time.
I've gone backwards.
Yeah, but still, the thing is,
I still go.
Fight.
I'm still at it 7 days a week, 5 times a week, doing shows. But I'm at it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
But if you think about it, Danny, you go back to 2012, 2013. If somebody would have told me in 2012, 2013, I had my list of the top 10 most dangerous reactors on Earth, and I thought, no way, Indian Point, Oyster Creek, San Onofre. If somebody told me that we got all those shut down, I would have told them, you're full of shit. They're never shutting those down. There's Indian Point shut down. Oyster Creek shut down. San Onofre shut down. Diablo
No, 100%. No, it's 100%.
And these are my top 10 worst nuclear reactors in the world. So we have to look back at our accomplishments.
Well, the reality of it is we're winning, but the media is screaming desperation. It's all posturing, but it's dangerous posturing, and so we can't let our guards down, basically.
Well, you know what it's like? It's like when the whole world, the United States, they told us that we won Vietnam, or we won in Iraq. Go ahead and say that's what the nuclear industry is doing with the United States. Declare victory, you know, walk out of the building, suck all the money. You know, Kissinger's going to be 100. When we didn't. And, you know, the world knows that we didn't. So let them talk their shit. Let them say whatever they want. Let them brand themselves in history. Why do you think they've all gone away? You know?
Yeah, I was talking about that a few weeks ago,
whoa.
how many fly-by-nights we've seen come and go, right? And it goes the same way with the attackers. How many fly-by-night attackers?
The trolls.
Yeah, the trolls.
Yeah, they can't hang.
They're there for a year or two at the hardcore, and then they disappear.
You know, we used to call those in the old days telephone tough guys.
Yeah, there was
They're not going to confront you to your face.
There was
They're
2,000.
going to try to backstab you behind a screen. Let them try. They're worthless.
Yeah, there was 2,000 students in Taiwan, nuclear students, spent 2 years after Fukushima spamming the internet, challenging all the information with propaganda. And I thought, how many other universities done the same thing worldwide in desperation?
What do you think they did in the United States?
Yeah.
The United States come out in a minute. We tracked it down. The NEI, which is the branch of the Department of Energy,
Disgusting,
all these
yeah.
trolls who were attacked, they paid them. They paid so many people to attack online, and the government admits they've done that now. The
Yeah,
United
with
States
canned
really
responses,
admits
yeah.
They did it.
Oh, yeah, no, like,
Thousands of people that were paid to do that.
there was, like, is there anybody in the nuclear industry that the world admires, you know? I can't think of one person in the nuclear industry the world says, hey, you know, they're actually a pretty good person.
Well, yeah, you look back in history, Fermi was a scumbag, a real scumbag, you know, even Oppenheimer, who was an anti-nuclear, you know, but...
Enrico Fermi, too, right?
Think about it.
Yeah.
Who do we really worship as a scientist in this country? Albert Einstein. He's considered the greatest one in history, which he was fierce anti-nuclear energy. He was the most hardcore anti-nuclear there ever was.
At the end of it, yeah.
And we were...
Well, what they done to Robert Oppenheimer, how they ousted him, how they vilified him and demonized him, but he was the good guy. He was actually a good guy. Leslie Groves, right, and Lawrence.
Because I used to go to these protests with Lauren Monet at Berkeley. I used to go to those in the early 80s, and those old guys would show up, and I'll never forget it.
Those were the good days.
We were at a thing, and Lauren Monet was putting on a show at a coffee shop in Berkeley. She lives right by there, and I was at it. We were meeting. Here come this old, long-haired guy in, and he stood up and introduced himself. And it was one of the Manhattan Project scientists, and he started to cry. And he said, you guys probably hate me. And Helen went up and hugged him. Or, excuse me, Helen, there's a Freudian slip. Lauren went up and hugged him. We don't hate you. Sit down. We're not like you, scumbag. Sit down. We'll befriend you. And he just cried. He says, and so...
I'll set the fuckers on fire, I ever catches them.
Yeah. Well, Frank, he was an anti-nuclear... And he's the one that turned me on to this when I was I was 17, 18 years old. He told me right to my face. He says, you know why the Manhattan Project was at Los Alamos? And I says, no, tell me. And he says, when they came to J. Robert, he said no. And he says, you know, our family had a summer home there. And J. Robert used to camp there all summer when he was a teenage boy. And he refused to leave. So he went to his place and he camped out there at Los Alamos. And so the United States government, he refused to go because they wanted it at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He says no, and he just stayed there. So the government says, well, we'll just move it to you. So they moved it to Los Alamos, and they never asked him to run it. They told him. And so that's how it ended up at Los Alamos. You know, Bezos was born at Los Alamos. Bezos' grandfather is Geis himself. His mother was 14 when she got pregnant. His real last name's not Bezos. His father was the original Department of Energy, which is the Department of Nuclear spokesperson, and he was born at Los Alamos, and so at the nuclear lab, and so that's how it got there. And Frank Oppenheimer was a fierce anti-nuclear the whole time, and even after, so was Andrei Sakharov, Tsar Bomba, and they labeled them communists. That's how they slandered him. That was McCarthy.
That's right.
Eugene McCarthy, and they labeled them as communists, and they all fled to Mexico.
There's actually quite a few recordings online of where Groves and the rest of them were interrogating Oppenheimer, and
what they did to him.
That was horrifying.
Him. They did the same thing to Einstein. You know, they did the same thing. You know, Leo the lizard died in La Jolla. Fermi died in La Jolla, you know, young. You know, I lived there then when I was a kid.
These are cockroaches in the industry. These are not. They got nothing to do with humans. They got nothing to do with humans.
You know, the worst of them all, Dana.
They're not.
The worst of them all, and they found him. The worst of them all.
Who?
Edward Teller.
Yeah, Teller.
They found Edward Teller, and that idiot. He ran the nuclear lab at Livermore. He's the guy, and you know he was pro-nuclear his whole life. You know, remember he wanted to use nuclear to build dams, and nuclear waste for roads, the whole works. You know, he didn't die till, 2004 or 6. So they replaced all those nuclear physicists from Los Alamos and Tsar Bomba, Sakharov, they all became fierce anti-nuclears after they saw what the bomb did. So they found puppets like, Arnie Gunderson,
Yeah,
freaking
Lake
Edward
Barrett and
Teller.
Gunner Shield and the rest of them.
Lake Barrett.
He's
Well, I
such
know.
a
You know what Lake
degenerate.
Barrett told me? Get this. This is a true story. So Lake Barrett's lives in Florida. Lake Barrett's maintenance guy is Mark, who's a friend of mine. So he called me one day on the phone, and he says, hey, I got Lake Barrett right here. I've been arguing with him about your work, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hi, Lake. How you doing? He's like, hi. He says, well, Kevin Blatt says these are full, this is 2013, these are full blown out freaking meltdowns, and you guys are just lying in Fukushima, Japan. It's just all lies. These are full blown outs, and you're just pushing a thing. And he says, well, Kevin Blatt is right. And I says, oh, I'm right, huh? And he says, yeah. And I says, well, that's not what you said on TV. And he says, you know what he said? We had to tell him something. That's his exact words to me. We had to tell him something.
I got clips of them when they were asked, did anybody die? And they were like, do you want to take this question, or do you want to take the question? Because they didn't want to talk about it. And they were laughing about it, right? They were.
So you look at that documentary. It's called "The Robots at Fukushima." It was done on day about 2800. It was on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl and Lake Barrett. That's when Lake Barrett admitted it all. I remember watching that the day that it came out. I waited for it. I was so relieved because Leslie Stahl asked Lake Barrett right to his face. You can look it up. It's out there. Well, what about cleaning this up? He says, we're not, this is going to take 40, 50 years. She says, this is like going to the moon to clean this up. And Lake Barrett says, right, Charlie, on 60. No, it's worse than that because this is way bigger than that, than going to the moon. He says, because this has never happened before. She says, so where are these cores? And he says, see those holes over there? She says, they're burrowing into the earth. They're in the Pacific Ocean. She says, well, and then she brought up other, and he said, no. This isn't Chernobyl. This is never, he cannot overstate this. He says, this is never, this is new. This is new, which, that's
We've never had 4 reactors go down and 8 fuel pools melt down.
They never had one.
Like, we've never seen anything. That's right.
Meltdown all the way. 3 Mile Island's probably the closest we came, and Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a partial graphite reactor that blew up, and it blew. It was a full reactor core blow up, but you had 700,000 men that entombed it. Gorbachev entombed it. They not a Fukushima. These are at least.
Well, Chernobyl was 600 miles away from the ocean, right? So that was a big difference too, and
right, but it was right on the big river, right on that big river that dumps into the Black Sea.
It was. It ended up in the Black Sea, absolutely. But
so they forget that the mining operation, the whole nine works. They didn't. I mean, my mate was from Kiev. I've been in Ukraine lots of times. The sacrifice that the Russians and the Ukrainian people made and Gorbachev made was they don't get enough credit. They mined underneath it. They went off it. 700,000 men were called up. And they spent months, and they entombed that thing. With a mining operation. At Fukushima, we didn't do shit. We just pushed it into the ocean. We didn't do anything.
Nothing, no.
What happened in the Situation Room. You had Gregory Jacko. You had John Holdren. You had Rahm Emanuel, and Barack Obama was green as grass inside there. And the head of the NRC, Jacko, they were all green as grass, and they just played them. And they didn't do shit. Remember, they sent in 32 ships to entomb it and to evacuate all military personnel.
Operation Tamagotchi, was it? Yeah, Operation Tamagotchi. Says the USS Ronald Reagan, with 5,000 people on board, was within 1 mile of the meltdowns as they were melting down.
I was the activist on all that, on that whole protest the whole time. I could write just a book just on that alone.
Yeah, it was
horrifying. How many people died off that freaking thing?
Their digital watches all stopped working at almost the same time. So it was a mad dose. It was a mad dose.
32 ships were sent in, 32 to entomb it, and it was Obama that gave the order on the advice of John Holdren. And remember Haas Cartwright? He was the Joint Chief. That famous quote, "Make it so." Do you know the girl that got that interview, that got that narrative out? I'm the one who put her up to that. There's an Asian girl who has a blog inside the Beltway, and she did an interview with John Holdren about, everything, blah, 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 and she was just ripping Bush. He was. So I says, do me a favor, can you think you can get a second interview? And she says, well, maybe. And I gave her the list of questions. And she went in and she caught him off guard. And she interviewed him, and she says, well, what about when Fukushima happened? And she says, I couldn't believe it. And he just went on. And he spilled the guts. He gave out classified information. He gave out everything that happened in the city. He says, well, I left, I came back, and we were arguing on the ships were sent in. We backed them out. And then, you know, Thomas Cartwright gave the order on the USS Reagan, and the order was make it so. And make it so, I guess, is I didn't know this because I'm not a Star Trekker, it's a Star Trek term, and they sent in the Reagan. So the Reagan, I was in the hospital in 2012 with one of the sailors off the Reagan. He died in 2012. I've known dozens that have died, and so I was the activist in San Diego on that whole case the whole time. And so that whole thing was so corrupt, what they did to those sailors. And I was in San Diego when they brought the ship back to San Diego Harbor, and they had a Little League sleepover football camp on it.
Oh, yeah, actual real-life monsters. They actually grind it down to decks of that 4 different times trying to get rid of the radiation, yeah.
I was there when they were doing it.
I remember that, by the way. Yeah.
I said, don't go on that boat. Don't go on that boat.
Yeah.
Get out of your mind. Do not go on that ship.
No. They're maniacs, boy. The industry is... That's what I mean, right? It's hard for people to understand how actually evil this industry really is.
So do you know about Danielle Valentine?
No.
Do you know about her? So get this. There's a young woman, African-American woman, famous from Oakland. In 13, she was really a dynamic, incredible young woman. She joins the Navy, and she gets stationed on the USS Reagan. Out of nowhere, her father and mother, who are prominent people in Oakland, get a call. She's dead. They freak out, and they've got connections. They're on every media in this country, all over the freaking country. Why did my daughter just drop dead on the Reagan? So I did a video about it. They found the video. Somebody sent it to them. They called me on the phone and says, we had no clue what Fukushima even was. We didn't know, blah, 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 blah. And they were everywhere on the media. Till the next day after they talked to me on the phone, they started talking about what about Fukushima, and the media completely cut them off. Never did another interview. You can look it up. Her name's Danielle Valentine. And, you know, and her dad he was fierce. He was going to get to the bottom of it. He didn't mess around. So was her mom. And they were on every media. They were all over the country on media until they mentioned the word Fukushima, and the media completely cut him off. He had no clue what Fukushima even was till I taught him.
That's heartbreaking, Kevin, yeah.
It just shows you the power that this industry has.
Oh, no, I see it all the time, right? I get this all the time. I come across people, they don't understand, and they don't understand nuclear. They don't know what Fukushima is, and they're curious, but how do you...
They're afraid.
What's the point of telling them, trying to inform them? Because
they're scared of it.
It's going to take hours. It'll take hours just to get them up to speed, and it's just... I don't bother with it, right? I like these shows.
That do know are afraid of it. They're afraid. They know what happened to Karen Silkwood. Yeah. You know, they know what happened
100%. No, it's a dangerous job we got here. It's 100% dangerous.
I remember at the university, Dr. Cooley, who died suspiciously out of nowhere when we were the #1 school business, he told me to my face, he said, Kevin, this is the University of Nuclearism, and you keep caping on the nuclear industry, they're going to kill you.
Yeah,
he said, they're going to come after you. I said, I don't give a fuck. I'm not afraid of them. And he said, I'm telling you, and it was right after that, out of nowhere, he dropped dead.
Oh, I've had guys, older guys, call me up and tell me of that they have an immunity to kill people for the government. And I'm so like, why are you telling me this for, right? Well,
that's called the CIA.
And then they start,
which is the nuclear cartel.
And then they start talking about stuff in my personal life that the only way you can know about it is if you have a camera in my home.
Oh, they know everything.
And I mean, they were very detailed, so there was no way I can misinterpret what they were suggesting. And I said, look,
you know what I tell them, Dana? Because they've talked to me many times. I mean, when I was in D.C., I had so many, all those, you know how many Secret Service agents, CIA agents, different people have freaking approached me, and they come right up to me in the plain clothes.
Oh, sure, no.
When I protest.
You're a national security issue, man.
Oh, they're all over me.
Yeah.
But you know what I tell them? Here's what I tell them. Listen, fuckhead. I tell them just like this. You think you're above cancer? You think you can't die of cancer too? You know, I know Sands personally, the head of White House Security. You know, I know him personally. You know, because of the Million Mass March and all that. And, you know, and I remember him getting all teary-eyed with me because he had a sister who died of leukemia, and he got all emotional, and that's why he let us do what we did at the Million Mass March. So that's what the card I play on him. I'm like, what are you protecting? An industry that can kill you, can kill your wife, can kill your children, can kill anybody anytime they want. It's called cancer. Why are you supporting these creeps? And I tell them just like that. You should be on my team. You know, and sometimes they are. You know, sometimes they'll say, well, you know, Kev, you're right. Can I do anything for you? You know, you should see security when I speak and send an offer, Diablo. I had Peter with me, and he didn't believe me. And I said, watch this. We got there. They had 12 plainclothes cops, 12 alone, just following me around, sitting next to me. Everywhere they were, following us everywhere they're going. You know, whatever. And I says, and I had, you know, back then I had Lori running cover for me, and Lori was so sweet and, you know, dynamic. She'd go talk to him. You know, and say, yeah, that's who they are. When I protested, they put a gun in my face when I had a permit at the Swartz building at the USS Reagan trial. You know, and there's Lori over there politicking with them. And, you know, who do you work for? Well, we're Secret Service. You know, we're, you know, this security, that security. You know, we're sent to watch Kevin Blanche. She's like, why? You know, and so, you know, back then I had a few different people that would work with me and, you know, help me out, like Lisa. Same way with Lisa. When she used to be so good, she's so cute and so good at politics, I'd be out doing my work, and she'd be over talking to these cops that are stalking me, you know, and getting the truth out of them. She'd sweet talk them. So it's dangerous work. It's really dangerous work.
No, it's I can
like
the tormenting they've done to me, the attacks they've done on me. I can understand why the average person gives up.
Yeah.
But I thrive on it. Right? I thrive on it. It's like fire to my soul. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
thanks for the warning. Come by and try it sometime,
and that's
right?
the thing. It's like I said.
I don't care.
I tell them straight up.
I don't give a fuck about anything. I'm not afraid of nothing.
These guys, you know, that's the thing. They need to jump ship and get on our side. You know?
Yeah, if they did, they would make millions on their books for sure, right? You know, if they came out, you've had a whistleblower come out and told the truth. They have fake ones. They have fake ones, but if you had a real one, the world will recognize it.
Yeah. Well,
like in history, when you look back in history, win, lose, or draw, the winners are people like yourself who done everything possible to wake the planet up, right? And to discourage the industry itself, right? The industry can't watch you without becoming brainwashed, you know, indoctrinated. We're not bad people. They can't look.
We just tell the truth.
Yeah, they look at us, but they can't call us bad. We're not bad people for being honest and sincere and genuine.
No, they're the bad people.
That's right.
They're supporting the bad people.
That's right. That's why they can't watch us, because they recognize
I always go back to Michelangelo. Michelangelo, a lot of people don't realize this, was an activist. And he had to hide for the last 40-something years of his life. And he wasn't famous for 300 years after. They did everything to kill him. Everything. He hid. People think he was just this celebrity famous sculptor. No, he wasn't. He was an activist going after the Catholic Church in a fierce way. And he had to hide under a church. I mean, he hid for 40 years. And then his work didn't become famous till hundreds of years after he was dead. You know, same with Einstein. You know, look what they did to Einstein. Same with Sokolov. You know, there's a new movie coming out this summer, Oppenheimer, that shows what they did to him. Same with him. Yeah,
it'd be interesting. You know, I got no idea how that new movie's gonna be. I've listened to the original recordings and read some of the transcripts, and it was horrific.
What they did to him is
what they done
horrific.
To him. Yeah, it was horrific.
Edward Teller, that piece of shit. Fermat, piece of shit. Leo Salazar, piece of shit.
Well, they seen all this power. They seen all this power, right? And they wanted it, and they got it.
And power.
But ultimately, they've screwed themselves. Thank goodness, right, by doing it. But what they done to Oppenheimer is testament to how the industry actually works, right?
Yeah, they destroyed him.
There's no common sense whatsoever. There's no rhythm or reason. It's just simply evil and greed, and evil rules every single time. I haven't found a single redeeming quality in the nuclear industry. That's for a fact.
No, they're the most evil scumbags in the history of the world.
Now, yeah, I haven't found a single person there that
I
Go
always
ahead.
go back to the line that Hoover used after the bomb. I'm a big believer in Dorothy Day's work, and she was so anti-nuclear and fierce and tough. And I knew Madeline Rice personally, who raised Dorothy Day, and so. But I go back to those people, and Hoover, when they dropped the bomb, Hoover himself. I mean, he says after they dropped the bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the only reason they dropped those bombs is because Russia was getting ready to declare war. They didn't want Russia to get the glory, and he said, never in the history of humanity has a military, a country, a people indiscretionally mass murdered women and children. Never till now. It revolts my soul. And, everybody just went out, and it was the nuclear industry that did that. What they did, and they never stopped. The valve was turned on, and so these evil people rose up in the Manhattan Project. They still have the filth to this day, like you say. Their kids, kids. And
well, they rebuilt.
They're evil, sick people.
They rebuilt Hiroshima and Nagasaki on the nuclear bomb craters. I mean, so they can study them generationally like human guinea pigs.
I got a hold of one of Sudoku's folded paper cranes. She folded 644. People don't talk about it. She died of leukemia at 11 years old. But, people forget that Sanjay Gupta and Anderson Cooper were at Fukushima on CNN every day. She come on, and then they came home, never said anything, and had this doctor on. Oh, it's all good for you. But Sudoku, the people that died of cancer in Japan after the bomb still to this day is a gigantic number. And we don't even talk about those people.
No, the propaganda is just the cover up and the cover up and the propaganda is just hideous.
Well, and the other thing, Dan, and a lot you might disagree with this, but you look back at all those years we were doing the typo work and doing the ocean work. You're on the ocean, I'm on the ocean. All these other vloggers, including Alex Jones, Rance, everybody was putting our videos on their sites, and they were raising a lot of money on my videos, all my time, and they never sent me anything. People were using my videos all over the place, right, Ever, and I looked out, those guys were about making money. They were selling their Patriot gear, and then they could have funded us. All these people that were using our videos and doing all that, the boots, that work is so hard, and they never funded us. Why? That's what blows my mind. They could have funded us, and they didn't. I don't know if they didn't me. I know that for damn sure. They never sent me no money.
No, I mean, just trying to keep this operation running is a fortune, for goodness sakes, and trying to do actual physical work is out of the question. They got us pinned right in. So, which is a mistake, really, because if I was out doing research, I wouldn't be here beating the shit out of them every day with presentations
if we had
and
some
videos.
Funding, like the university, they used to, fund people like me. I'm like, if I had some funding to have a nice car with post-it notes written on it, Fukushima, I'd be working up and down the coast in a nice van with some nice equipment, and I'd have a place to sleep, and I can work up, down, do my typo work. But instead, I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag, hitchhiking, walking, sick,
I need,
with no money.
It
wouldn't take shit.
I need a new outboard motor, and they're expensive now, right? They're like $12,000-14,000.
Oh, well, at this point, we did the work on a shoestring. We did it. I'll continue to do it.
I worry about it, though, all the time. How the hell am I going to do the research without the motor?
Yeah.
And it bothers the shit out of me because we're losing this only opportunity we got, right? And every year we lose.
And I really work on those low tide pools. It's hard. I mean, I get them at very, very low tide and do it. And you got to have a place to sleep. You got to time it right. You got to have a ride. You got to
it's madness.
I have pulled it off. I can't believe I pulled it off so far.
Like we
just don't have any backing.
Even like you have a dud day where you go and do all this work and then it doesn't work out because of weather or some other thing.
Yeah.
It's so hard to recover, right?
You're sick, you're tired.
Yeah, it starts.
I used to stand out. I remember a cop come up to me, and I'm in Castroville on the Central Coast. It's 4:30 in the morning. You know, I've been up pretty long. I've been walking, and they're waiting for the low tide pools there at the Elkhorn, Moss Landing. And I got to Castroville, which is more Mexico than Mexico, and I'm standing outside the library. It's 4:30 in the morning with my iPad. I've been up all night. You're trying to, and the cop's got his lights on over, and he's all over me. They're going to arrest me. He says, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm trying to get some Wi-Fi out of the library. It's the closest people I can get it. You know, I can't find a Starbucks or anything's open. I need some Wi-Fi to upload this video." And thank God the cop was cool. And he says, oh, I get it, you know, but that's how I lived. I mean, people would find me all the time. They say, "What are you doing?" Well, I'm standing out
It's a terrible.
next to a Starbucks in the middle of the night with an iPad trying to get some Wi-Fi to upload my video.
Yeah, I've done it many times, man. And it's it's a horrible feeling too, right?
Oh God, take hours sometimes.
And you got everybody staring at you like you're some weirdo, maybe, or something.
Oh, cops all over you. I mean, people have no clue how many times I've had cops all over. I have an energy solution. I got smacked with a nightstick in my arm. Almost broke my arm. I have run a cop out there.
Scumbags.
You know, you're out there in these dangerous places at Livermore. Same thing. You got cops all over you. You got ignorant people that don't know, and you know you're so vulnerable, and you got no cover. You know, I always said for years, my number one thing is you do not do activism and go by yourself. I violate my own rules thousands of times, but I tell all the people all the time, like here at Westinghouse, right behind my house, you should see the cops on me when I'm over there protesting. Right behind my house, oh, they're all over me. You know, you should see it. I mean, I'm like, oh, God, they're going to shoot me and just say I freaking tripped, you know?
Yeah.
But you should always have somebody else with you, you know, but you should always have at least 2 or 3 people when you're protesting these labs and doing your work. But people don't protest anymore. You know, I try to go. People won't show up anymore. They did for a while. You know, everybody quit because they got threatened. You know, they got nervous. I don't blame them.
Oh, yeah, no.
You know, Radioactive disappeared. We can't even find her. Lauren Monet's disappeared. We can't even find her.
Oh.
You know, so.
Now, it takes a special kind of hate to keep going. I like to say.
Yeah. You got.
I run on hate. I run on hate for the nuclear industry, and every time they attack me, everything they've ever said about me, and there's been a lot, man. All the nonsense that they done to me, I'll never go away. I'll never go away.
Well, my dad died.
The nuclear industry if the nuclear industry shuts down tomorrow, I'm still going to curb stomp him every day for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I hate him that
my
much.
My brother says, "You really going to watch him load him in the body bag?" I says, "Yeah, I'm going to watch him load him in the body bag. I want it to burn a hole in me. I want to hate these fuckers. They nuked me to death. I want to hate them."
Yeah, that's right.
When Annika died, I held her hand when she died. I held my dad's hand, and I stood in the hospital, and the doctors were like, what are you doing? I says, "I'm not leaving till the coroner comes." And the coroner comes, and I asked the coroner, "Can I ride in this hearse with you? I mean, the meat wagon with you?" I've never had that request before. Well, I just requested it.
That's some
come ahead.
That kind of hate not going away.
Because I wanted it to burn a hole in me so I'd hate him. And so I am the bone marrow transplant at LDS at the hospital. I was head of the support group for a long time. Family members won't sit with their family members as they're dying. By the way, I wanted to say this, and I forgot that Paul Severga, who's always in our site, he's in your chat. He was in mine for years and years and years fighting MLP. He died, so of leukemia. So there's another one that's passed away, and he was one of our group. He was there every day. I just found out today that he died of, he's been fighting leukemia. But when I was in the bone marrow transplant, I would sit with their loved ones because family members can't do it. It's brutal. And they're how do you do it? I says, I want to do it because I want it to affect me. Like you said, to hate them, and I do hate them.
Well, they done it to me. They turned me into what I am today. I wouldn't exist in the capacity I do without the constant, brutal smears and slanders and innuendos and attacks.
Have you ever watched Hamlet? You ever read Hamlet? It's Hamlet. Oh, cursed spite that I was ever born to sit this. That was his life. He was a little boy and he watched him poison. I watched you dump poison in my father's ear, and he fought it his whole life.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with my dad.
I'll take it to the grave.
My father.
I'll take it to the grave, my anger, that's for sure.
Yeah, me too.
It's
You know, I've been fighting my whole life.
justified, right?
Yeah.
You know,
You know,
watching, going,
That's just
doing,
the way
doing
it's
those
gotta be.
research expeditions for years to Alaska had taught me that this is not a game at all, man. This is
Oh.
as real as it gets. This is
Yeah.
an extinction event, right? And I'm not going to sit in silence no matter what they do. I give a fuck how many times they get arrested. I'm not sitting in
Well, I was in
silence.
critical condition. I remember being out at Gorda. I'm walking the coast of California. I'm down to 130 pounds. Weighs 38. I'm out of water. I'm out of food. I can't get a ride, whatever. And I remember I just laid down on my sleeping bag up on one of the cliffs. And I woke up and sea lions barking, and I was having a dream. And I was having a dream of my dad and Annika came to me. And I looked up, and my feet were literally, my sleeping bag had slipped down, and my feet were hanging over the cliff. And I'm telling you, I'm 200 feet up there. And I woke up and I reached out and I grabbed some grass and I'm clinging, digging my teeth, and I drug myself back up on the cliff. I came that close to sliding off the cliff asleep because I was so frustrated and dying. I'm like, holy fuck, can you believe that? Then I had a elephant seal. I walked right around a corner and a male elephant seal was right up glaring me right in the face.
Yeah, you won't have to worry about them for much longer. They're being wiped out. Hey,
Right.
Kevin, we'll call it a night, I guess.
Okay.
That's the show. we'll do the news cycle tomorrow night. There's always tomorrow
I mean,
night.
it had to be said.
That's good stuff,
It's a
man.
good show.
No, that was awesome.
good
I thought it was excellent.
It's all right.
No, we'll do it again.
Right on, brother.
Okay, my friend. Thank you. Anything you want to throw out
All
there
right.
before we give it a call?
No, just thank you to everybody who supported this cause, and you know it's a tiny few, but that's cool. You know, we're David, they're Goliath, and we just keep fighting. Don't ever forget that.
It only takes a few of us to make their life miserable. So
And that's the way it always has been. It's always the tiny few groups that win. It's never the masses; they never win. So, all right.
okay, my home.
Party on.
Okay, buddy. Hugs for you and your loved ones. Thank you, Kevin. Good stuff, my friend. Appreciate it, eh? That was excellent. That was Kevin Blanche. And Kevin's been protesting since Jesus was a baby. His father used to carry him. His father was one of those guys who was in the military, and so when they done the nuclear testing, nuclear bombs detonations, they're not testing their nuclear wars, right? The same fallout, the same bombs. And his father was tricked and deceived and manipulated and coerced into walking right into ground zero after detonations and got sick and died from it. It's a terrible, terrible. And there's so many of them, right? There's tens of thousands of these. And this was part of the agenda, was to make them sick and then follow them for the rest of their lives and study the illnesses. His father was purposely poisoned. So we're going to close down the poll. We made it through the show. We'll cover the headlines tomorrow night. It's not unusual for us to stray. We go with the wind sometimes, like a nice sailboat would do. It's kind of a relief anyway. You have somebody else doing all the talking, most of the talking for a change. It was excellent. We just covered a lot of subjects. That was a unique show tonight. It was pretty amazing. So we just closed the poll down. Good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. See everybody on tomorrow night. We'll cover the news cycle from tonight. Tomorrow night, can't win them all. And I see 239 Joint was here. That's Joe. Joe's been around for a very long time. He's suffered from radiation poisoning as a child and got all kinds of debilitating and catastrophic illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries, and suffers actually from gigantism because of rocky flats. It's an interesting point to make. So that was a great poll. We appreciate everybody who participated in the poll. Stephen Young donated $50 last week, and we needed that. We were down I'm not going to cover it tonight. Obviously, the show's over. But I got a pictures and videos of the last couple of days because we had another dolphin die-off down here. This one was actually pack ice. But the story is not quite that simple. It's always something more. Okay, well, we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Good night, folks. Take care now. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you made it this far. We had a special show tonight, and that was pretty cool too. Take care, folks.